You will now take a break from modeling the cup to work with the nodes in the network view. The nodes act as a recipe that describes the flow of data from the top to the bottom of the network. Keeping this view of your scene organized and easy to read is important for when you return to it later on in production, or when you share your work with others and you want them to understand how you created the shot. So let's select the cup object here, and we can press I to dive into it. We could also have double clicked on it, but that works. We're going to take this little interface here. There's a little up arrow there. We're going to click. That allows us to focus on the network right here. And what we're going to do is we're going to select the match size node, and we're going to wiggle that out so that it actually breaks out of the network. We're going to do the same with the color. We're going to wiggle that out. And we're going to put the color right after the tube, and we're going to put the match size down at the bottom. What that shows is that the flow of data, it still works, and it has you have flexibility in terms of how you can organize the nodes that you have. Now again, as we select a node, we'll see that node in its sort of whatever state it is at that point. So that's important to remember. And then we have our display flag on the end here. So let's go in and take the first two nodes, the tube and the color. And what we're going to do is we're going to alt drag that over to create two new ones. Now we're going to go tab switch, and we're going to put a switch node right under there, and we're going to attach this here. Okay. Now, if we select the tube and press P, we'll bring up a parameter pane right here. We can change that to 1.2. Now notice we're not seeing that here. If we want to, we set the display flag on the color and change that maybe to red. So there's now two different ones. So now if we put the switch here, we can actually, let's turn off the color. We can switch this from 0 to 1, and that will change those two. And if we set the display flag back to the cup, so there's our original cup, and as we go to do this, we can make a shorter cup that sits also on the ground because it's following the rules that we've set in this network. So let's press P to turn that off. Now what we're going to do now is we're going to organize ourselves a little bit. We're going to take this and we're going to go Shift O, which creates a network box. And we're going to call this Shapes. Okay. Then we're going to go in and we're going to select all of the tools that were used to deal with the polygons. And this time we could Shift O, or there's also a little button here you can press that also gives you that. So we can take that, move this, and if we want to organize, let's say all of these, let's say these things get out of whack, and we do this, so things are not lined up. You can select this. Actually, let's do everything up to there. Let's do everything up to there. And we can go A and drag down, and that actually organizes them nice and cleanly. So that's a cool trick as well. And we're going to say here polygon tools, and these network boxes can be collapsed. If you're like, I'm not going to touch those nodes again, you can collapse those and simplify your network, or you can just use them as sort of help organize what's going on in here. Now, the other thing we have is something called the shape palette. So we can actually go in and let's say select these two and say we want those to be sort of a down arrow, and these two we're going to have them sort of explode, and this one will go with a circle. So you can help make your network easier to read by playing with the shapes and so on. You can also do things like, let's press C, brings color, and we can say, well, those original ones were orange. So we're going to, no, that's yellow. Okay, orange. And we'll take these two and we're going to make those red. And this one, we'll make that one yellow. Okay, so you can use color and shape to help identify what's going on in the networks. Now, we can also do something called like Shift P and then add that and say, you know, these shapes are a starting point for the final look of the cup. I create the scene, somebody else opens it up, they can read those notes, and hopefully they're getting a better sense of how that works. You can also add a note to a specific thing here. So if you if you take this node and you go to the info panel, you can actually add a comment here saying this moves the cup up to the floor, and then you can say turn that on. And there we go. So now you see that the match size has this extra little note to it. So there's other ways like that to make this work. Now, some other organizational tools for this. One of the things I want to talk about here is just the display nodes that we had. And we sort of dealt with this a little bit before. So I can, for instance, set my display flag here, which means that it hasn't been sized, moved up yet. I can also set a template flag here so that it lets me sort of see what it looks like there. I can also bypass this so that even if I set the display flag here, it's not being matched because we're ignoring that node. So we can do that. You can also freeze a node. But anyways, these different flags, the 4 flags which are can be accessed through this wheel, are useful and will become a big part of what you do in Houdini. As a matter of fact, not setting your display flag is often how you debug problems that you encounter in the software. So if we get down to here, a couple other tools that are interesting is you can press the Y key to sort of get rid of these, and you can press the J key to sort of connect them all back. So that's just a quick way of getting things to work. You can also, if you want to, move the cup out here and press the Alt key and add 2 little dots here. And the dots just act as organizational tools that allow you to do this. Although you can, connect to that with another node over here if you wanted. Okay, so now you have a sense of what it's like to work with nodes in the network, and everything you do in Houdini, you will begin to play with these nodes and interact with them and wire them and break them apart and so on. So it's good to have a general sense of the skills that we just went over. In the next lesson, we're going to create a simulation. We're going to create a bunch of gumballs and drop them into the cup. So see you then.